Tonight on Brian Ross Investigates.
Class of 2013! Hello!
Harvard University under fire from a Nigerian-born student from the class of 2013 who seemed like a future superstar.
I am honored to speak to you today.
But the morning of his graduation, Damilare Sonoiki was told he would not be receiving his degree. Allegations of sexual misconduct brought by 3 former girlfriends.
It's unthinkable what happened to him.
Now he's suing Harvard in an explosive case in the Me Too era that raises questions of sex, race, and due process on America's college campuses.
Let me ask you directly, did you rape these women?
I did not, no.
Plus, more mystery in the air. What or who is flying high over the night skies of Colorado and Nebraska, scaring local residents? The FBI and the FAA are said to be investigating.
They appear as little twinkling lights. Sometimes there's just one, but in other cases we've seen clusters of 6 or more.
And our shout out for the woman who runs a small nonprofit journalism outlet in Memphis, who exposed how one of the city's big hospitals was going after poor people who could not pay their bills. The result? Thousands of people had their debts wiped away. From the Law and Crime Network studios in New York City's Herald Square, this is Brian Ross Investigates.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight we begin with an explosive case surrounding Harvard University and a young man who was once one of its star students, now suing Harvard, claiming he was a victim of overzealous school officials who sought to crack down on sexual misconduct on campus.
At Harvard University, the graduation ceremonies each year are a showcase of American success stories.
Class of 2013! Hello!
Those who have already made it, like 2013 graduation speaker Oprah Winfrey.
I thank you for allowing me to be a part of the conclusion of this chapter of your lives.
And those who seem destined to make it.
Damilare Sonoiki.
In 2013, the class chose as its class day orator a Nigerian-born young man who grew up in a rough neighborhood in Houston, Damilare Sonoiki.
Sophomore year, my cousin was shot and killed. He was 22. And when I was 16, I got shot accidentally by a friend. After I left the hospital that night, after watching my mom cry, my friend's mom cry, my other friend's mom cry, you know, moms, I looked down and noticed 2 bullet holes in my shirt. These holes remind me that eventually isn't promised.
At Harvard, Sonoiki worked on the school paper, The Crimson, the famed humor magazine, The Lampoon, and he was president of the Harvard Black Men's Forum, here introducing special speaker Van Jones.
I feel like Mr. Jones really exemplifies our core principles of brotherhood, manhood, and fidelity, and we're really excited to welcome him today. Thank you.
But as Damilare Sonoiki joined his classmates to walk down the aisle and receive his diploma that day in May of 2013, with his proud mother and family looking on, he had just that morning been given some devastating news about his degree.
I got pulled aside by the resident dean. She pulled me aside and said, mine wouldn't be in the envelope because of, there was disciplinary, situation.
He could walk with his classmates, but the envelope he was to be handed would be empty. There would be no diploma inside. And now, 6.5 years later, Harvard still has not given him his degree.
Think about it. Somebody goes to a school and for 4 years studies and completes all the requirements and then finds out that they are not going to get a degree. It's unthinkable what happened to him.
According to a lawsuit Sonoiki has now filed against Harvard, the school told him just days before the graduation that 2 women he had dated or roomed with had accused him of sexual misconduct. A 3rd woman he also knew filed a similar complaint in the days after the graduation.
And these were women with whom you had long-term relationships?
Yeah, 2 of them were people I had been friends with for years. And we had become intimate at some point over the course of that. And one of them was, someone I had known for, a while.
In his lawsuit, Sonoiki says the women were pressured by Harvard to file their formal complaints.
Let me ask you directly, did you rape these women?
I did not, no.
Nothing like that from your point of view?
Nothing like that. I mean, if I would no, first of all, no, I didn't, like, categorically, but also if I where, as a Black man in Cambridge, Massachusetts, if I were raping women left and right on campus, I probably wouldn't have been chosen to speak as a Harvard orator to represent was chosen by my classmates to speak as part of graduation.
Sonoiki says Harvard at first told him they would take a few weeks to further investigate the allegations, a process that dragged on secretly for almost a year until the decision was made permanent. No degree ever.
There was no real clarity on, kind of what was going on.
A process that his lawyers, Christina Supler and Susan Stone of the Cleveland law firm Coleman, Jackson & Kravitz, say is all too common with such cases on college campuses.
Every student, regardless of sex, should have the right to come forward and report claims of sexual violence. The issue in this case is, what should the process be?
And what was the process here that you most object to?
We most object to the fact that Damilare, he was in essence shut out of the process. And this is a 21-year-old man at the time with no attorney, doesn't even know the identities of the witnesses against him, no ability to question the evidence against him, and really had to, on his own, work his way through an entirely Byzantine and convoluted process.
In fact, in 2014, 28 Harvard law professors wrote in the Boston Globe that the university's process for handling such cases lacked the most basic elements of fairness and due process, are overwhelmingly stacked against the accused, and are in no way required by Title IX law or regulation, a reference to the federal guidelines on dealing with such cases. So Sonoiki kept his secret that he had not received a degree from his family and from his new employer in New York, Goldman Sachs, where he had landed a highly coveted position in finance.
They found out from, anonymously from, I think someone called or something.
So Sonoiki had to leave his job at Goldman Sachs. His admission to Harvard Business School was withdrawn, and another high-paying job offer in finance was rescinded.
You're about to graduate, in May 2013, and then at the last second, your degree is, everything you've kind of worked for your whole life is just kind of, taken, withheld.
Instead, Sonoiki went to Hollywood, using his Harvard Lampoon connections to land a job as a writer on the ABC sitcom Blackish.
Today we're joined by Damilare Sonoiki, talented writer on the award-winning show Blackish,
where he received notice as an up-and-coming writer who overcame adversity to go to Harvard.
And you did, we have to say for the audience, make it to Harvard, so you didn't disappoint your parents when it came to that.
Sonoiki's life took on a dire turn when he was indicted and pleaded guilty to a charge of insider trading, providing stock tips to a professional football player he had befriended, something he claims he did to raise enough money to hire lawyers to sue Harvard.
It felt like a very hopeless situation. And also I was focused on trying to get, this 50,000, 100,000, however much, these lawyers.
You think it's directly related, but you made a bad decision, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I take, ownership. It was very, very bad decision. But I also think you make bad decisions when you're under a lot of, that wouldn't have happened. One thing wouldn't have happened without the other. But I take responsibility. It was very stupid. It was not a good idea at all.
But with all that behind him, Sonoiki is now focused on his lawsuit against Harvard, eager to get his degree and to challenge the process that his lawsuit says was weighted against him.
The reality is Brian Damilare never had a fighting chance to defend himself whatsoever. He was involved in a process that was essentially what some call a star chamber. So he didn't even have an opportunity to hear what was being said about him, to know whether his side of the story was being accurately represented to the panel.
And Sonoiki's lawsuit also claims that race played a factor because the ad board did not contain a black male voice.
Back when Damilare went through the process, there was not a single African male on the ad board, which is the board that decided that he should be sanctioned for the allegations that were lodged against him.
Sonoiki says he wants Harvard to finally award him the degree he earned with a 3.65 grade point average and restore the reputation he once had as one of Harvard's finest.
I think for me, it's more just like pointing out, I think, unfortunately, for better or worse, there'll always probably be a cloud. If you're accused on one of these college campuses, you're guilty. There's no real there's everything else it's performance art.
Harvard declined to make anyone available to respond to Sonoiki's lawsuit, saying it does not discuss pending litigation. The university has now filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit, calling the lawsuit meritless and detailing what it says were 3 instances of non-consensual sex. The names of the women have not been made public, but Harvard says one of them claimed to have blacked out at a party and then awoke to find Sonoiki having sexual intercourse with her. In a statement, Harvard said it is, quote, deeply committed to providing a supportive and inclusive environment for members of our community and will not tolerate sexual misconduct, including rape and other forms of sexual assault, unquote. Up next, mystery in the skies. Who or what is flying high over the night skies of Colorado and adjoining states? The FAA and the FBI are investigating. It's a new year with a new mystery about unidentified flying objects. Last year, we reported on videos released by the U.S. Navy that showed unexplained craft caught on tape by pilots who were amazed at what they saw.
Roger, there's troubleshooting as soon as I get. Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly.
Now there is a new set of unexplained objects flying over the night skies of Colorado and surrounding states. The stories started locally, but have been picked up by national news outlets too.
Drone. Michelle Eckhoff has been watching large drones fly over her home for the last week, just after dark, several at a time.
The first time you actually saw one, what did you think?
It was odd. It reminded me of War of the Worlds. The sky is lit up with Christmas lights, basically. There's lights and things flying all over.
Hers is among the hundreds of reports across several states since December of large commercial-sized drones flying low at night, often in formation.
It's been dark for about a half hour, and we are seeing drones all over the sky. They appear as little twinkling lights. Sometimes there's just one, but in other cases, we've seen clusters of 6 or more.
All that attention has now led the FBI and the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, to join an investigation with local law enforcement to determine just what is going on in the skies. And joining us now to learn more is Linda Moulton Howe, the editor of the Earth Files website, which says it's there to allow experts, eyewitnesses, and viewers to share updates on earthly and astronomical mysteries. And Linda, as best you know, what's going on right now?
Well, it is only 1 month ago at the middle of December, and now we're at the middle of January. And there have been hundreds of reports between Colorado and Nebraska from people who it almost went like a move out of Washington and Yuma counties in Colorado and began expanding into Nebraska. And I have interviewed several dozen people, and the phenomena keeps going into the category of drones because so many people say they are hearing the buzzing sound of what a drone would be like. Some people have seen 6 to 8 foot diameter, what they call flying stop signs. That would be in the drone category. But here is the great puzzle right now as we're speaking today. On January 6th, only about a week and a half or so ago, there was a meeting in Brush, Colorado, and the FBI was there, the FAA was there, the Army was there, Homeland Security was there, and several sheriff's offices and police. And it was a meeting that the public was told to stay away. Most of the media was told to stay away. The Denver Post was there and a couple of TV stations that apparently knew the sheriff. And they have this meeting, and at the end, Phillips County Sheriff put out this Facebook to the public. A task force has been organized, and we are asking for your assistance. Specifically, we are looking for the command vehicle, meaning assuming drones. We are looking for a closed box trailer with antenna or a large van that does not belong in the area. And they gave the sheriff's office phone number for people to call. And in 48 hours, the Phillips County Sheriff's Office had rescinded everything, said, don't call us. We are not looking for this van. And nobody today, as we are talking on January 16th of 2020, nobody knows why was there that rescinding and why is there nothing but complete silence from Homeland Security, the FAA basically, from the FBI, from the Army. All they've done is say, we can't confirm malicious intent. And the sheriffs and the people that I've talked to say, whatever is here, it keeps coming back. It is repeating. It is at 400 feet and it goes up to 1,000 feet. And then they say, why wouldn't we, the people living in Colorado and Nebraska, be told by somebody in the government who clearly must know what is going on because of the silence? And you and I know that when there is something afoot, like a big story that we haven't even seen yet, and that there are agencies like the FBI and Homeland Security and involved, and they remain quiet,
Absolutely.
You and I know
Something's
they
there.
have answers.
All right, well, Linda Mountain Hall, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it very much.
It's a true mystery.
Up next, our shout out, tears of joy from thousands of people in Memphis, thanks to some great local investigative reporting. And our shout out tonight for a reporter in Memphis who, with the help of ProPublica, set up a small nonprofit journalism operation and then took on that city's biggest healthcare provider in a series of stories that, as you will see, had a very surprising outcome.
It's the largest healthcare provider in Memphis, and in a promotional video celebrating its 100-year anniversary, Methodist Bonnier Hospital makes much of what it calls a culture of compassion.
True to our faith-based mission and Methodist heritage, we have a tradition of building up our entire community through a host of local programs. From free cancer screenings to childhood asthma reduction, we are committed to improving all lives, regardless of their means.
But a year-long investigation by journalist Wendy Thomas called the hospital's compassion into question.
I would go to court every Wednesday for 5 months watching Methodist in action.
Documenting an aggressive debt collection system by the hospital against those who could not afford to pay their bills.
So over a 5-year period, Methodist Hospital filed more than 8,300 lawsuits. And when they won a judgment, as they always did, they were more successful in their attempts to garnish wages compared to the city's other large hospitals.
And the people they were filing the lawsuits against?
So a lot of those people were very low income. The benches would be full of defendants who were really ill-equipped to deal with this really savvy legal team that also had, good rapport with the judges.
For Thomas, it was just the latest installment in a series of reports about her hometown for a website she founded called MLK 50, standing for 50 years since Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis.
This story began kind of with a broader question, which is, why is Memphis so poor? It's the second poorest large city in the nation, and we wanted to think about the money that is siphoned out from these households. And so that got us on the track of debt, and specifically medical debt.
And the court records told the story of how Methodists relentlessly went after those who could not pay often huge medical bills.
Anybody can get sick, right? All of us can relate to that. And these people's mistake, if they did make a mistake, was being poor and sick at the same time.
But the hospital at first tried to ignore Thomas and her small nonprofit outlet.
So the hospital refused multiple requests to be interviewed. We, of course, operating by the no surprises policy, let them know what our findings were, presented list of questions, and they typically didn't answer most of the questions and just pretty much stonewall us during the whole investigation.
Tonight, a scathing report exposes how a nonprofit hospital in Memphis is suing the poor in this city over and over again.
But when her story went public, it was the talk of Memphis.
Methodist filed more than 8,300 lawsuits for unpaid hospital bills during the past 5 years.
So shame, as it turns out, is a powerful motivator. And after the stories broke, including one about the hospital suing its own employees who made sometimes as little as $12 an hour. Outrage was immediate, widespread. Within 5 days of the initial story, the hospital suspended all court collection activities. And within another 30 days, they announced major reforms to their charity care policies, making them twice as generous as they had been.
But the biggest surprise was yet to come. One by one, the people who were being sued by Methodist discovered that their debt had been wiped out.
I have a zero balance.
In total, they ended up erasing at least $11.9 million in unpaid hospital debt that more than 5,300 defendants had. So this is good news for a poor community like Memphis.
So for those 5,300, what actually happened?
Their balance has been marked as zero with the courts.
Zero?
It's gone.
And that must have made you feel pretty good.
Yeah, it did. It did. I can remember sitting in the car with the hospital housekeeper who had been sued. She owed $23,000. That was more than she'd made the prior year. And I showed her case satisfied notice where it said that her balance was zero, and she was ecstatic. Yeah, I'll remember that moment as long as I live.
The story has brought much needed attention to her MLK 50 project, which has been funded in part by the nonprofit group ProPublica in their efforts to promote good local investigative journalism.
I think for journalists, particularly who are in low-income, low-wealth communities like Memphis, to think about poverty not just in terms of who suffers from it, but who profits from it, and look for those who profit, and with an eye to what systems can be changed.
So you're going to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely, for as long as we can.
Who's next on your hit list?
Oh, I can't tell you that.
Indeed. Good work, Wendy Thomas. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next week.